everyone's interested in space travel, as far as I know, looking up at the stars, space travel. But I feel that Elon Musk and, this new generation of making it so cool and changing the Air Force to Space Force has made it a bit intimidating and almost exclusive, where, I feel that you're doing the complete opposite. You're making it approachable and available for everyone again, and really reigniting that fantasy for children. So that's why I wanted to have you on. Yeah.
I guess we are kind of like, I think it's easy to see billionaires and super high net worth individuals involved in the space industry and think, oh, it's just for them. But actually what's happening in space exploration is nothing new. And it's, we had exploration on Earth, which is governments first and then private industry afterwards. Right. And the same's happening with space. It's basically private industry is following, the governments went in first and now private industry is following. But it's not just about the gazillionaire space. If we're to succeed in exploring space and pushing the boundaries of where we want to go and what we can do, it needs to be about everyone on Earth. It can't just be this niche group of people. And you think about it, today, fewer than 600 human beings have been to space. Most of them have been white and male, and most of them are either military personnel or scientists or a combination of the two. But what happens if we send, a house husband from Arkansas, or a woman in a village in India, people from all kinds of different backgrounds into space? How will they make it relatable to their communities? How will they go back to their communities and explain space exploration in a way that someone they can't relate to can't do?
Right. And that's, I did, I think that's fantastic. I did read about that in your book. I have your new book, Look Up.
Thank you.
I really enjoy it. Yes. You were the first female, actually, that I followed that was in space travel. I have a lot of friends that are engineers and astrophysicists. Oh, cool. I know it's unusual for comics, right? Most comics hang out with other comics. I prefer to hang out with engineers. I find them more attractive.
I love it.
I definitely find engineers more attractive than comics. Let's put that out there. I'm looking for a hot astronaut. If you could help me out with that, Sarah, I'd really appreciate it.
Me too. Should we go looking for 2 hot astronauts?
Yes, 2 hot astronauts. That'd be fantastic. I would think that you would get your pick of first of all, you're gorgeous and you're smart. I'm not as smart as you. I'm not as smart as you. We should put a warning. I do, when I talk to people, I do give them warnings that I am a stand-up comedian, but I'm like, you're British, you'll be fine with my humor. But some people are offended.
No, you can't offend the British people. Yeah. Oh, hang on. I think I can share it to my stories. Here we go. Creating video.
Okay, great.
Oh no, it's going to be us talking about hot astronauts.
That's great. That's so funny. We're looking to shag a hot astronaut. Put that
on Stereo wants to open Instagram. I don't know what's gone out.
It's going to be all over the BBC. It's going to be tagged on the BBC report. Sarah Cruddas, live on Stereo, talks about shagging an astronaut with American. Too bad her dreams won't be answered this year because the Prime Minister has canceled Christmas in England.
He really has. Oh my gosh. And we've had Christmas cancelled. It's all a bit crazy. This year has just been. So I normally work in America, and I came back to England to write my book. And then lockdown happened. I was due to go back in March. And it never happened.
Right when the lockdown happened. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was doing lockdown before it was a thing. I was doing it in January to write my book.
Ah, that's funny. So actually, I was too for about 2 years because I was going through a divorce.
Oh,
So
it's the
it
same.
was. Oh, you were too?
No, I mean that's the same as writing a book, though. Divorce. That sounds
Oh
like
yeah,
horrendously
yeah.
stressful.
All right, let me give you a proper introduction. So, everyone who's listening on stereo, if there's anyone there, because I can't see them outside in the 80-degree sunshine in Los Angeles,
Oh,
California.
it's about 35 degrees in London right now. Just
35 degrees in London, 80 degrees and sunny in Southern California. And I wanted to announce we have Sarah Cruddas on, astrophysicist, author of the new book, Look Up, BBC correspondent, Space Humanity board member, correspondent, and TV host of the Space Channel and Discovery Channel Contact. Correct?
Yes, correct. What an introduction. I love it. Although you've got 80 degrees of heat, and today in England it's the shortest day of the year, so we had 7 hours of sunlight, but the sun didn't come out because it's just cloudy all the time. So like I haven't seen sunshine in about a week, and there you are in 80 degrees in sunlight.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. In about a week. See, that would be so depressing to me. I love London. I've been there. I think it's beautiful, but the lack of sun. I'm from Chicago, so when I moved, I moved to LA for the sun. For the sun, I needed the sun. I love the sunshine. When do you get to come back? When are you coming back to LA?
Oh, I hopefully early next year, or maybe not too early next year, like with the situation at the moment. But like, I'm hoping like in the spring. I feel like you've got to be optimistic in a situation like this, and I've been optimistic for a year now, and it hasn't paid off. But like, I think by spring, by kind of like spring, summer, I think things will start to resemble more like normal, and I hope to be back in LA.
It's strange though.
It's just, if someone had told you a year ago you'd be wearing masks and Christmas is cancelled in London.
What? I mean, literally, Christmas is cancelled. I thought it was so crazy. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on with the Prime Minister there?
Apparently, they're like policing the train stations and stuff, so you can't leave. Like,
God, are you serious? That's so bizarre.
Yeah. Our lockdown's been so severe compared to like America, basically. So we can't. No shops are open. The only shops that are open are essential stores, so food stores.
Okay.
That's it. No pubs are open. No bars are open. No gyms are open. You're not allowed to meet with anyone you don't live with.
Are they fining people?
Yeah, like serious money as well.
Wow. So, all of this that's going on in the world, I think that's how I discovered you. I was so excited about forgetting about, the politics here in America and politics of COVID and just focusing on something completely different, like space travel and the launch. And I know we were doing a little rally back and forth about the countdown for Team Dragon, right? It was, I believe it was Team Dragon.
Yes, I remember.
And the launch. And I just, that was so fun. I was like, how exciting. It's something that involves everyone around the world. And has nothing to do with COVID and politics. And, here, the election, it just got so ugly. It was just so nice. And it was amazing just thinking about space travel. So that's how I met you. And that's what I really wanted to discuss is that space travel and bringing the world together through space travel and what we have to look forward to. What's going on now in the world with space travel and what we have to look forward to.
We have so much to look forward to, and I think in what has been an awful year, like for many people in this world, I think space exploration gives us hope. And when you say what to look forward to, you can talk about things like the Artemis program, which will see humans returning to the moon. You can talk about all the exciting, SpaceX are now sending human beings into space, and next year we're going to see lots more astronauts launching from US soil going to space, and that's going to be incredible. But then you can talk about the more profound stuff as well happening in space exploration, such as the fact that, we can't even begin to imagine what's to come. So when there's this quote from this evolutionary biologist who was alive like 200 years ago called JBS Haldane, and it's as true today, this quote, as it was a few hundred years ago, but it's the universe, to paraphrase it, is not only as strange as you can imagine, it's stranger than you can imagine. And when we talk about what's happening in space exploration, we can't even begin to imagine what's going to come over the next decade or 2 decades, because change is happening much faster than you realize. I think we kind of had this lull after the space shuttle, when we want, space wasn't that exciting, and it didn't seem like we were doing that much. And now there's almost a resurgence, and we weren't around for Apollo, but you look back at, well, I'm assuming you weren't around for Apollo. You look great if you were. We weren't around for Apollo, but if you think, that the excitement we're seeing right now for space exploration is comparable to when humans first set on the moon, and space is no longer about two superpowers battling it out and the threat of nuclear, all out nuclear war.
Right, between Russia and the US, right.
Yeah, it's instead about, if you were to get a map and color in all the nations which have access to space, you'd color in most of the countries in the world, and space is now becoming about so many. It's about the individuals, it's about anyone with an idea and a dream, and there's so much opportunity within space exploration right now. You don't have to be a scientist, you don't have to be an engineer. I mean, SETI, which is this branch associated with NASA, which hunts for alien intelligence, like it sounds like science fiction. Search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. I mean, they employ artists to draw out what planets around other stars, exoplanets, could look like. So we need all kinds of different occupations to work in the space industry. And I think what's so exciting is that space is something that we can all access. You can sit and watch a rocket launch on your cell phone. You can sit on your couch at home and watch a rocket launch live on your cell phone. And that just, it sounds like something which is out of science fiction, but we're really living in this hugely exciting time for space exploration.
Right. And actually I did watch the launch when I was on the trail. I was on Griffith Trail, and I did watch the launch from my cell phone. I thought it was so exciting. Yeah, I could hear it and I could watch it. I was like, this is crazy. I am on a little device on my phone. It's basically a mini computer, which is my iPhone, on a trail, watching humans fly into space. It just sounds incredible. So nuts.
It's incredible.
So incredible.
And I think the question is, like, I have to get asked is, when, where in the future would you like to go? And I always say now, because we can't predict the future, and obviously the past is past, but we can, we are living, I know it doesn't seem like it with COVID and cancelled Christmas here in London, but we are living in the best time, and we've got the opportunity to create a better future for us all, for humanity, and a more inclusive future. And it's so exciting, all the stuff which is happening in space exploration, and the fact that people all around the world, you just need a cell phone to be involved, to watch, to communicate about it. I love that so much. And I love the fact you were right by Griffith Observatory as well. While you're watching that space launch, like that's double space points you get.
It's just one of my favorite things too. It's one of my favorite trails to go on. I don't talk about my interest in space because I feel stupid. I don't feel like I'm smart enough to be. Because, the astrophysicists and the Elon Musks and the scientists, and I don't know, I just feel like it's something that's been it's something that I am not, as a comic, I'm educated in business. It's not my world. Space and science, chemistry. I mean, just like physics. It was never my thing. I was never good at physics. So I almost feel a little bit embarrassed to talk about it, because you have these space buffs out here, people who just worship Elon Musk out here. And as you know, have you met Elon Musk, by the way?
Do you know, I haven't met Elon Musk. I've worked with Jeff Bezos, and I've been associated with Elon Musk, but I've never met him. I've been to like a talk he's done, but never met him in person. I have friends who've met him. Does that count? Like,
yeah, but you've done but you have worked with SpaceX, right? And you've been a correspondent with some of their launches. So I would assume that you'd have been there. If not, you should meet him, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I have friends who work at SpaceX. SpaceX are notoriously sometimes they can be quite quiet as well, because obviously they're doing quite incredible things at the moment. But I hope to interview him at some point in the future. But not yet. But going back to your point, you shouldn't feel, I think this is what needs to change.
Intimidated.
You shouldn't, because like, space is for everyone. And yes, science is the language, or math is the language of the universe, and those are useful skills. But if you have a passion, or if something interests you, just go out and shout about it, because we need to stop, putting people down or making people feel like they're not enough if they haven't got the right kind of background to be involved in something. So I love that you love space, and I love that the fact that you're not someone you'd associate with liking space, because you are this comedian, you have got this business background, but you should shout about it. You should be proud of that interest, and we need people from all kinds of backgrounds to love space. And it like, as the title of my book, look up. All you need to do is look up at the night sky and look up at the stars and feel that sense of wonder and awe and curiosity about what else is out there in the universe and our own place in the universe. So space is as much about philosophy as it is about science. So as long as you've got a spark of curiosity in you, that's all you need.
And I love that. And I love that about you. And I noticed that you were very interested in encouraging me to talk about space and my children when we were on Instagram together. So I love that. Even though I wasn't a scientist, or I wasn't an engineer, not a billionaire, that you were
You're
still...
not a billionaire?
No, sorry. I know. I thought we were going to... I know, I'm sorry. I disappointed you. I know we were going to go to space next year together to celebrate our birthdays. With the price tag of only $500,000 a person, it's just such a steal.
I think we should go twice each.
Sarah, do you want to go to space? I'm assuming you do.
I do. When I was a kid, and one of my first memories is of looking up at the moon. No one in my family had been to university, and no one who had a space background. But I was interested in space from literally one of my first memories. And I always wanted to be an astronaut growing up. I won a scholarship to space camp. Now, bearing in mind I'm British and I grew up in the north of England, so me going to Huntsville, Alabama, from Hull in the north of England is about as remote
crazy
as you going to the moon. It was just like a different world to me. So I always had this passion to go to space. But you got to remember, first of all, I'm British. We've only ever had one official astronaut, and he flew 5 years ago. So we're kind of behind in the human spaceflight thing. But second of all, yeah, it's crazy. I
didn't realize. I didn't realize. Yeah. I didn't realize that the British didn't have a space program like we did in Russia. I just assumed it was everywhere.
Wow. No, we have one astronaut who went up with Russia, and then was on the International Space Station called Tim Peake. And then we've had a few Brits who emigrated to America and then went to space, but obviously then as Americans. But yes, it's kind of hard, but it's changing now. There's more of a space industry in the UK. But yeah, for me, how can you not want to go to space? How can you not want to see that view, to look back at the Earth and to see our home and see how fragile it is and how beautiful it is and how all the pettiness and all the division that we have on Earth, actually in the vastness of the cosmos, we're all united. We're all crewmates on this pale blue marbly dot, and that's all of us. And I think to go to space, two things I'd look forward to: the view, but then being weightless, like in zero gravity, and just floating around, like. Wouldn't you just love that?
Yes.
Like, that would be awesome.
Yes. Yeah, flying. And that was always the coolest thing growing up that I'd think about is space travel, like, being in the space shuttle and flying, basically.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Sometimes when I go swimming, I think that's like the closest I'm going to get to weightless feelings. But yeah, I would love to go to space. I think it would be a dream come true, but it's risky business, and it's a tough business as well. And I think we've become so, I don't know, we've taken for granted the space age that we live in today, that we forget that these astronauts are literally riding a firework, giant fireworks into space. These are, many of them are military personnel, former military personnel, and they take huge risks, and they do that for all of us because they're pushing the limits of what humanity can do and where humanity can go. So it's a risky business, but wow, it'd be worth it for the view.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, the risk that it takes. So I read in your book that the first commercial or non-astronaut, the billionaire who paid $20 billion on the Russian space station to go to the International Space Station, how could he do that? Don't you have to train? I mean, how could someone who was not an astronaut go?
So they've been trying to, that's kind of what we're seeing now with space tourism. So almost in the same way that with aviation, it was just pilots first of all, and then you had passenger or navigators and crew, and then you eventually had passengers, and they were always very, very wealthy passengers to begin with, and then the price came down. it's kind of the same with what we're seeing with space exploration. So these wealthy tourists who paid 20 million, some more than that, who flew on the Russian Soyuz rocket and stayed on the International Space Station, they did have to go through a lot of training. So they're not really tourists in the sense that like you and I could get on a flight and go to Disney World. They pay the money, and then that would be great, right? And
yes,
then
yes.
They train. So they do train. They do obviously not the same amount of training as a professional astronaut, but it's probably not fair to call them tourists. They're more like spaceflight participants. So they're participating in space exploration, but they're not a professional astronaut.
Got it. But they have to go through the G-force training and training for the zero gravity and getting conditioning. They have to go through conditioning.
Yeah, I think conditioning is a great way of explaining it. They essentially have to, because if you were just to literally get on a rocket right now and go to space, I imagine it would be pretty frightening. Like there's a lot of scary stuff, and they're taking up a seat which would have a professional astronaut. So they do need to go through the training. And even with take Virgin Galactic, for example, when they eventually start sending paying tourists into space, obviously there's not as much training involved because it's just a 15-minute suborbital flight, which essentially means you're up in the air, you're up in space, and then you come back down in the same spot where you actually launch from. So you're not in space for a very long time. But there's still a few days training that's required for that because the G-forces, the pressure, you have to. Yeah. There's less of a health requirement, but there's still a health requirement and a psychological requirement. So it's still not easy going to space. It's still, there's a reason fewer than 600 humans have been to space and why it takes such an elite group. But hopefully what we will see is just with getting on an airplane, eventually 100 years from now, I hope less than 100 years, it will become commonplace, something which is relatively normal for a large population, a large percentage of the population. At least that's my hope.
Okay. Well, that's why I thought the astronauts, there were so few astronauts and they had to be, a certain mental capacity, certain height and weight, because they all seem to be very big, over 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds, because of gravity, because of the physical requirements.
Well, the first astronauts, the first guys in Mercury 7, they were actually really tiny because they had to fit inside the tiny space capsules. So some of the Mercury 7, they were like 5'6", 5'7".
Interesting.
And these were the, just the original astronauts, just because the capsules were so tiny, they had to fit these specific height requirements, whereas now it's kind of like more flexible, which is why you get like a range of astronauts in different shapes and sizes. But yeah, back in the beginning astronauts, they had to be small. And I think sometimes you imagine them being much taller because of the stature of what they achieved, but actually they're relatively small guys, these original astronauts.
Wow. I don't know. I always just assumed maybe it is because they are walking on the moon or traveling to space. They're these larger than life humans, right? Bigger, better, stronger. Have you met any aliens? Are there aliens? The aliens exist, right?
Well, if I met an alien, would I be able to tell you on this app?
Sure, anything goes. It's free speech on stereo.
So my show Contact, which was on Discovery Channel last year, we were actually looking for evidence of alien contact, hence the name Contact, and whether, because there's a lot of people who think they've seen something which is a UFO or a UAP, which is unidentified aerial phenomena, but actually it can be explained away by science. But then at the same time, there is some sightings that we cannot yet explain. And obviously there's going to be some sort of answer. It could be something, some sort of on-Earth phenomena we don't understand, or it could be aliens we just don't know yet. But if we look a little further away from Earth, first of all, this is the question I always say to people: if you walk past ants on the street, would you try and talk to those ants?
No, of course not. And so why aliens aren't going to talk to us either?
Exactly. There you go. You got it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Or is there robotic technology sent out by aliens that is watching us? We just don't know, if that makes sense. But closer to home in the sense of our own solar system. I don't know whether you saw the news story early this year, back in September, about phosphine being found on Venus, which means there's potentially evidence for alien life, very simple alien life on Venus, but we just don't know. We need more evidence in order to prove or disprove that. Mars may have had microbial life in the past, or more advanced life. It may even have microbial life there today. Life on Earth could have been seeded from Mars, so we actually all could be Martians, which is insane. And then there's other places within our own solar system where we think life might exist. So Enceladus and Europa are these icy moons of the planets Saturn and Jupiter, and we think they've got liquid oceans underneath their icy surfaces. And we know on Earth life can exist in all kinds of extreme places, looking at the depths of the ocean. So perhaps alien life, it sounds like science fiction, could exist on these moons around the gas giants in our solar system. We just don't know yet, but within our lifetime, within the next few decades, scientists are hoping to prove that. And if we prove that there's some form of life elsewhere in our solar system which is independent of life on Earth, and we know that our solar system is one of billions, trillions that exist in the universe. When you look up at the night sky, for pretty much every star you can see, there's at least one planet orbiting around it. And if we know that in our average solar system there's 2 independent genesises, then we can't even begin to imagine what else is out there. It then becomes like, but the real question is, I guess, it's highly probable there's alien life within our own solar system, albeit simple alien life. But the real question is, where's the intelligent life? Are we the most intelligent life in the universe? That would be so depressing, I think, if we were
the intelligent life, right? So there is life. I mean, there's definitely life, microorganisms in different countries, different planets.
It's highly likely there's life beyond Earth. We just haven't proved it yet. But I just pray we're not the most intelligent life. You've got to hope there's something bigger than us out there.
God, there's so many questions, so many as you speak, it's like opening up the possibilities. A question I have to ask you is about the Christmas star. So what is the significance of the Christmas star?
Well, the significance is it for me here in London that I can't see it, but hopefully you'll be able to see it. So
I believe I saw it last night.
Did you see it last night?
I think so. Really I think so. Night? It was very close. It was low in the sky. It was sparkling. It almost looked like there was green and red in it, like Christmas lights versus just a regular. We get when we look at the stars, it's like white or kind of a little orange glimmer, but it looked almost like it was just brighter and it was low in the sky. It looked like a Christmas light.
There we go. Unless it was a Christmas light. No, I'm joking.
Or a plane or an alien.
Can you imagine?
I told my girls that the reason why the Christmas star was out was because that Santa knew that, COVID was going on and he was just afraid to go into people's homes this year. So instead, there was the Christmas light this year. So enjoy.
I love that. That is so cool. I love that. I'm going to use that. That's actually I can give you the scientific explanation, but the real reason is Santa. But the other explanation,
the real reason is Santa. Santa's one reason.
And the other reason is basically we orbit around the sun on Earth, and all the other planets in our solar system orbit around the sun also. So we see the planets in the night sky when we look up. The reason you can tell the difference between a planet and a star is because planets actually don't twinkle because they are not a single point of light. Stars really far away, so they get distorted by our atmosphere. That's why they twinkle. Whereas planets, they're closer. They're reflecting light from the sun. So even though they're much smaller, relatively speaking, they're closer to us. So they appear bigger, so they don't get distorted. So
so the planets do not twinkle. Okay, good. I didn't know that.
Not twinkle. Yeah, twinkle, twinkle, little star, not twinkling. Planet.
Yes.
And then you've got, so Jupiter and Saturn have been seen much of this winter, actually, and much of this fall and winter. But at the moment, basically, they line up. So their alignment is that when we see them at this one point tonight, although not from London, but hopefully where you are in LA and elsewhere across the world for people listening, they will actually pretty much merge in the night sky. Obviously, they're still billions of miles away or millions of miles away in space, but they look like they're merging into one in the night sky. So they form this much brighter star type object in the night sky, and it hasn't been seen. They haven't aligned up like that for 800 years. So it really is kind of like a once in a lifetime opportunity. But you need to have clear skies, and to see it, you need to look to the southwest, and it's going to be relatively low on the horizon.
Okay, I'm going to check again this evening.
I need you to take a photo, and also if you miss it tonight, don't worry, because they're going to be like yesterday they were super close, and like all of this week they're going to be really close. So if you miss it tonight, don't worry, you'll get other chances.
Okay. I think that I was there a few nights ago. I think when it was the first day of the Christmas star, the sighting. My girls and I went on a hike, and we were there Griffith pretty late. And it's been closed because of COVID, but we did see a lot of people. They decided to open up the telescopes that evening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think that that's what it was. And I didn't realize it because I didn't realize till I got home. I wanted to look up what was going on. But we did notice that the sky was just spectacular that night. I don't know. I love to take my girls up there to go see the stars. It's just so beautiful.
I think the sky in LA is amazing as well. And you have the weather for it, so you have mostly clear skies as well. So it's a great, like, please, I'm going to live through you. Please see it tonight, because I couldn't, and see it the rest of this week. And yeah, I guess like a treat, but obviously it is still, you know, we know it's Jupiter and Saturn, but we also know it's Santa that has arranged this because of COVID. So we've got to thank Santa big time.
Yes. Okay, so here are my stupid questions that I do want to ask you.
Far away.
In May, when the SpaceX launch, I was thinking about COVID. So what if we bring COVID to space? Like we really don't know. I mean, we can't cite it. We don't know what it looks like. Is there any fear of bringing any disease to space, or bringing something like COVID into space?
That is a great question. It's not a stupid question at all.
I was worried. I was like, wait, should these people be going into space right now? They could bring COVID to the aliens. The aliens will hate us.
No, it's a real serious question. It's something which has been taken into consideration. So the astronauts normally quarantine before missions to prevent stuff like this. So that, for example, they don't, they leave their families before the mission. They go into quarantine. People who have quarantined are the only other people allowed to see them. So they've taken a lot of extra precautions, such as, the basic public health things, such as wearing masks, etc., but also quarantining for a lot longer in order to prepare for this situation. So, every measure has been taken to ensure that COVID isn't taken to the International Space Station, for example, which is where the astronauts are. Because you imagine if one of the astronauts did bring the virus with them and they got sick and they got really sick, but they're in space, it's not as easy to get to a doctor when you're in space. Obviously, the astronauts on the space station have medical training and there's medical provisions, but it's a serious situation. So yeah, they quarantine, they do as much as possible to take precautions, and there's a hell of a lot of money involved in space exploration. So no one wants to have to be in that situation where you've taken COVID to space and an astronaut gets sick. So it's a really, really serious consideration at the moment.
Okay, so this is normally done. The quarantine happens. It normally happens anyways when anyone goes to space.
Extra quarantine this year.
Got it. Okay. Going into space, like you were saying, it's very expensive. A lot of resources go towards this. What about someone who says, why are we spending all this money for space exploration when we should be spending money on water, clean water for people around the world? So a lot of places that don't have plumbing and clean water.
That's a great point, and a valid point. My kind of comeback to that is, like, you could say the same about art. You could say the same about people having a different amount of wealth. And what often doesn't get explained in space exploration, first of all, if you're looking at the pure economics, for example, in the UK, for every dollar invested in space travel, space exploration, the space industry, you actually get $10 back, which obviously brings benefit. And secondly, more importantly, the majority of things we do in space are actually about looking back at Earth and benefiting life on Earth. So we do a huge amount of science in space, which is about things like the developing world. How can we provide connectivity to the developing world? How can we provide looking at irrigation for farming, for example? So we talk about lack of access to water or places where water's pretty scarce, but using space-based satellites to look back at farming and fields which need to be farmed, we can work out how best to irrigate the land, how best to access water sources. You can get an overview of the planet and an in-depth understanding, doing things through infrared and other things within the electromagnetic spectrum of our planet, enabling us to make better decisions on Earth to improve conditions of life on Earth. And then thirdly, it's not just problems such as clean water. Everything from cancer research, for example, in space, cells grow differently in microgravity. They mimic how they would grow in the body. So there's been a lot of research into cancer and cancer drugs and other types of medical diseases, medical issues in space, because it's a unique environment. It's taking away this variable of gravity for all intents and purposes and bringing us a new way of researching ourselves. So it's a valid point to ask, what about all these issues on Earth? But much of what we do in space, and often it doesn't get communicated as much, but actually it's for the benefit of life on Earth, and not just the wealthy, not just the developed nations, but people across the planet. And as we continue to push forward in space, we will continue to see benefits for all of life on Earth. But then at the same time, so Michael Collins, he was the guy, the Apollo 11 mission to the moon, he was the guy that remained alone in the space capsule while Neil and Buzz went down to the lunar surface. And he gave this incredible, he wrote the foreword for my book, which is a huge honor. He's 90 years old as well. And he gave this incredible speech at Congress in 1969 when he'd just come back from the moon. And he talked about how on the way to the moon, they have to rotate the spacecraft, because on one side you have the sun heating it, so you have to distribute the heat. So they're being rotated like a chicken on a barbecue spit sort of thing. As they're rotating, they have a choice. They can look out the window at the Earth, look back and where they came from, or they can look out the other window towards the moon, where they're heading humanity's future in space. And Michael explained to Congress that they looked both ways. They look back at the Earth, but they also look towards their future. And he likened that to what we need to do as a species, that in order to progress, yes, we do need to look back at Earth, and we need to, there was problems raging on Earth in 1969 when they went to the moon, but they still went. But as we go forward in space exploration, we need to acknowledge that there's problems and look back and continue to solve them. But at the same time, stasis isn't good for our species. We can't remain still. We need to continue pushing the limits of where we can go, but we will never succeed in doing that if we neglect looking after the poorest on Earth and planet Earth. So we've got to do both things.
Beautiful. Yes.
Your questions are great.
I just find it fascinating. Right. So it's a matter of looking at where we are today, but also continuing to look forward. Otherwise we'll get stuck.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And I met Buzz Aldrin.
Oh, I love it.
When I was in my 20s, I was in the advertising. I was in corporate production. I produced corporate meetings and events. So that's what I used to do. I used to produce those. I was a producer on those events. I did that for 10 years. And he was one of the keynote speakers we hired. I couldn't believe that he went to the moon. I knew that he went to the moon, but I for some reason, it was just like, I didn't want to see him that way. It just seemed so out of my realm of possibility.
I think. Oh no, go ahead.
No. That's it. It's amazing to me, and I think that's what's so cool about space travel, especially because now it's become, it's gone into the private sector with SpaceX. It's like there's more launches. You see them more often. You hear about it, and it's becoming like a mainstream conversation, which opens up just the world of endless possibilities for a lot of people in a lot of creative realms as well. So I think it's really amazing. It's a little bit intimidating. It's also, a little bit eerie and scary as well, because there are all these things that we just don't understand in the world.
It's incredibly scary. I think the vastness of it all, and the and just going back to your Buzz point, just imagine. So obviously humans haven't been back to the moon since 1972, December 1972. So it's been 48 years since humans were last on the moon. But imagine, within the next decade, humans return to the moon, and you're able to go outside and not only look up at the moon, but look up at the moon and know there's people there.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
And those people will be broadcasting in pretty much real time back to Earth.
Yeah.
And on the moon. They're on this other world. Like, the one thing we have in common with our ancestors is that we've all looked up at the night sky. But the difference is, when we look up, you know, we can see the International Space Station passing over occasionally with people on board that. And one day we'll be able to look up and know, you know, humans, people like you and I are just stood on the surface of the moon, working on the moon. And that just, you know, you say it didn't feel real meeting Buzz and knowing that he'd been to the moon, but imagine like looking up at the moon and knowing there's people there. That just changes everything, and it'll just inspire a new generation, just in the same way that like the generation that grew up watching Apollo, like the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, they went out and they created this insane modern world we live in today, you know, the world of cyberspace. Imagine what the generation who watches Artemis, the name of the program to return humans to the moon, imagine what they're going to go and do, things we can't even imagine yet, and how they're going to change the future, what your girls could do. It's just it blows my mind to think that that's happening, and like that will happen in the next few. And that's why I think like this year's been especially tough. It's saying reconnecting.
Strange Wi-Fi. How do you keep motivated and not only motivated but disciplined for your days? What do your days look like?
Those are great questions. I don't think I'm disciplined every day. I think most people aren't disciplined every day, but how do I keep motivated? Like, space is my lifelong passion, so it's not a problem being motivated, but also like in all kinds of jobs or industries, we all have to do things we don't like. So I think, you know, for me, the thing I hate most is emailing. You know, everything we do in life is going to be hard. Like, even if you don't do anything, it's going to be hard because you're not going to achieve anything. So kind of like the fact that I wanted to write this book and I wanted to inspire people, that kept me motivated. And you always have to go through that suffering to get to where you want to be. So it's hard to stay motivated, but you've just got to keep at it. You've got to keep hustling and keep trying, and hopefully one day something great will happen. So yeah, that's how I stay motivated. But it is tough this year. You know, my pre-COVID work, I was flying around the world most of the time. I was giving talks around the world, and that element of what I do is gone. And I miss it. I miss the travel. I miss the world. But you've got to just try and stay positive, even when it doesn't feel like you can be positive. But I do feel like, genuinely, just like my house where I live, I've got like a skylight in my bedroom upstairs, and I always pull down the skylight if it's a clear night and look out at the stars, and that just inspires me, and that wonder and that awe inspires me to stay motivated.
You seem like a modern day Indiana Jones to me.
Really?
Do you know who that is? Do you know who that is? Yeah, it's like an explorer. I mean, you really are just like a modern day explorer. You know, so I feel like if COVID wasn't going on right now, you would be traveling all around and looking at the stars from all different parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, like last year I did 85 international trips. I worked in everywhere from Uganda to Kazakhstan to Eastern Ukraine to Mexico. Like,
in 1 year, 85.
Yep,
85 places.
I was exhausted.
Wow.
I think I needed 2020 to not go traveling.
Wow.
And I miss that, because I think, you know, until you can go to space, traveling Earth is probably the closest you can get. You know, it's that kind of like that exploring, that wanderlust. But I miss the open road, and I miss the world. But you've just got to stay motivated and know that nothing's permanent. Through Space of Humanity, which is this non-profit I sit on the board of directors with, Space of Humanity, the idea behind them is to, as you said, democratize space travel, and basically to send people from all walks of life into space. Because actually, when you talk about the comparison with space exploration to flight 100 years ago, it was the wealthy which went first, and then the rest of us kind of followed. You know, that comparison needs to stop. And actually, if we're to succeed in exploring space, it can't just be about the wealthy and the elite going. So Space of Humanity is actually giving away tickets to flight, passenger tickets to flights to space for people from all different kinds of backgrounds. You apply via their website. You have to do a video application and an essay application, and you get the chance to go to space. Because if we're to succeed, we need to have organizations such as Space of Humanity changing who it is that goes into space, because then more people will be on board. It won't just be seen as something that those people over there do, or like you said earlier. Yeah, and you feel like you can't like space because you're not a physicist, for example.
Right.
That needs to change. It needs to be people from all kinds of backgrounds. It shouldn't be elitist in the sense that they're just academics who do space stuff, or that it's just super wealthy. It needs to be with everyone. So yeah, democratizing space is essentially about making space exploration for everyone and offering space flights out. And the only thing you have to pay in return is your time acting as an ambassador for your community to inspire others about your experience of going into space. So paying that good gesture forward.
Nice. And is this happening now? Is Space Humanity taking essays for this or taking applications for space travel?
Applications. You can find them on social media. They're at Space Humanity, and you can go on their website, spacehumanity.org, and you can apply online. So they do, it's in sections. They do groups, a couple of groups a year where they take the applications, and then obviously it's kind of a chicken and egg situation, because as soon as the commercial space flight starts, that's when we can start sending up citizen astronauts with Space Humanity. So this is something which is happening.
When is that going to happen? It's happening right now.
Yeah.
And when do you see first the space travel happening for citizens?
Hopefully within the next few years. So as soon as commercial space travel with organisations such as Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic and also Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, as soon as those kind of start, that's when we'll see individuals going with Space Humanity. What needs to happen with space exploration is it can't just be for the uber wealthy. So with Space Humanity, these are free flights. These are not ones you have to pay for.
Space travel only seemed like it was something that was accessible for the super rich. It's an elitist thing. And the fact that you are out there saying it's for everyone, and it needs to be, and an organization like Space Humanity, which it is, we all live on this planet. We're all human. Like, we should all have the opportunity and have the experience to share with our community what it would be like to travel in space. I had no idea that Space Humanity was actually taking applications. I'm afraid that I would be one of the people, my children and I would be one of the people that he chose to be on his commercial flight. And then what happens, his commercial flight to space, and then what would happen is that all the people who went to space would actually become his slaves, and it's just all a show to take over the world, and it's like a world domination thing. So once he got all the billionaires in space, and then the other women and children, because he'd want to, basically we would become his sex slaves, and I would become Elon Musk's sex slave out in Mars. And if we fought with him, that he would use those flamethrowers against us. You know, those the Boring Company flamethrowers. The Boring Company flamethrowers.
Hilarious. I know the flamethrowers.
Yeah.
Who has one of those?
So ridiculous. I mean,
but I don't think that's true of Elon Musk, but I hear your point. Space is more than Elon Musk. There are so many companies out there right now trying to disrupt the space industry. It really is, it's the entrepreneurial space age we're entering. It really is about individuals with bold dreams who can go out and dream the impossible and create new companies and help create this industry. So yes, of course, you're going to need the billionaires, and that they're solving hard problems such as launching. Musk is reducing the cost of access to launch. That's why you see his rockets land after they've launched up to space. But there's a lot of other problems we need to solve in space exploration, and a lot of other room for people with less money, particularly when the launch, the cost of going to space comes down, and we can send experiments and ideas to space for less money, who will actually disrupt the industry. So it's not just about, forget about the big figureheads.
Nice.
It's about you
the
and
disruptors.
It's about anyone with a dream.
Will you be the first person then? Will you be on that first flight for when it's commercial, or I don't know what's called commercial, not non-astronauts? Will you be on that first flight?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to be. That is no, with Space Humanity. That's a great question. We'll be sending them up alongside other paying customers, so the flight will be fully paid for by Space Humanity, obviously. But in the future there could be just Space Humanity flights. So you can only send 6 passengers, for example, with Virgin Galactic. So it'd be like one Space Humanity astronaut alongside others, but in the future you could get an entire passenger flight sold out, for example.
So what does it look like? What would a flight look like? I mean, do they know what a flight would look like? You're saying it's already 6 passengers, like it's 15 minutes up and 15 minutes down.
It's launched from the air. So with Virgin Galactic, it's actually, it's almost like 2 planes joined together at the wing, and then beneath that massive wing that joins them together, they have a smaller plane, which is known as Spaceship Two, and these planes take off into the air. They go to the just above the cruising height of a commercial airliner, and then they drop the smaller plane, which the astronauts are on board or the passengers are on board, and that plane fires its rocket motor while it's in the air. And you do that because then you're above much of the atmosphere, so you need less rocket fuel to get to space. You're eliminating the amount of fuel you need to escape, and then you air launch it's called. You've got less resistance, the air's thinner, and that's how the passengers will get to space. And then it curves up to it just crosses what's known as the Kármán line, which is this imaginary line where we define space as beginning and Earth as ending. And it crosses over that line. You experience weightlessness for a matter of minutes. You're able to unstrap and look out the window. And then very quickly, you have to take in that view, get your selfie, get your TikTok, whatever. And then get your TikTok. Get it right. You've only got one take.
Wow. Yeah, get that Instagram story. Get your social media done in space. $500,000 just for that little video.
Best selfie ever. And then you strap back in, and you're lying down this time. You recline your seat because of the G-force, and then you return back to Earth. Obviously, you've got pilots flying you, and that's it. That is, $500,000. But what a trip! What a trip!
Wow.
It should be accessible to anyone, and that's why organisations such as Space and Humanity are so great, because they're trying to make it accessible to ordinary people.
Wow. I have no desire to do that whatsoever. I don't like roller coasters. I don't like roller coasters.
Spokesperson.
Oh my God, no way. I'm like, I don't even like the idea of actually looking at the Earth from space. That's the one that excites me. But flying on a giant firecracker that basically you need it to explode for you to go into space. It doesn't excite me at all. Jumping out of a plane, heights, dropping. No. I don't even like to drive as a passenger in someone's car. I have to drive.
Really?
I don't like sitting in the back seat.
Wow.
Yeah, I get sick. I get sick. Sometimes someone's driving. I get motion sickness. So
that's fair enough. I get you.
Yeah. Especially in LA, we're driving all the time. But
oh my gosh, the 405 in LA, that is the worst road ever.
The 405 to me is like waiting in line at Disneyland. It's just the adult lines at Disneyland, right?
Oh my gosh, it never stops.
You're just in line all the time to go wherever you need to go. It's just ridiculous.
Normally to LAX, the number of times I've gone from West Hollywood to LAX, and I'm just on the 405, normally a passenger in an Uber, am I going to make my flight? Who knows? Why did I think it would take less than 3 hours to do this journey?
It's so ridiculous. You can't plan for it. It's so illogical. I don't understand. I've tried to figure out the traffic here, and it just makes no sense. Sarah, thank you so much for this talk. We didn't even talk about your book. Everyone who's listening, anyone who's listening, anyone who's there, please buy Sarah's book. Look up. Now, did you record it on Audible?
Yes, I did. It's on Audible as well. I read it. So it's Look Up Our Story with the Stars. It's on Audible, HarperCollins. You'll have to put up with a British accent reading it.
No, it's wonderful. No, I think it's great you're reading it. I like it when the authors actually read their books, if they're good readers. I have heard a few that are bad, but I do prefer Audible because of the traffic. We do a lot of Audible books. But true. I have to tell you, I do like the fact that your print is bigger in your book.
Yes.
Was that on purpose?
I like that also.
I'm like, wow, I can actually read your book. I don't have to strain my eyes to read your book, which, isn't it ridiculous how all the books have small print and you can't see the print in the books? I
hate that. And I also hate I buy these big books and then they're big books and they've got small print. And then I'm like, wow, this is too much. This is I bought the People's History of the United States, big book with small print. And I'm like, this is not happening. The entire history of a country in this massive book with small print, and it's too much.
That's how I feel too. So that was a pleasant surprise opening your book.
Thank you.
My daughters and I are reading it together, so we're just going through chapter by chapter together. So it's nice, and it's just exciting for them to read and to know that you're a female author and you're a female astrophysicist, and you're also attractive and a TV host, and the fact that you came from you were a meteorologist, so you're a weather person, and then
my first
back
job
to science.
was a weather girl.
Yeah. So I just think it's just nice. I would really love to see you go into space. be able to talk about it, your whole journey while live. Because these astronauts, they're all nice to look. I mean, it's great, but I mean, God, they have nothing to say. They're not very interesting to listen to.
Some of them are.
They're all right. But it'd be nice to hear somebody who knows how to talk, like a journalist, if you get them up in space, like someone who can communicate like you, and you can describe everything very eloquently. It'd be better for the masses, I think.
Yeah, I think what we will see that change in the next few decades, like people who, all different. That's what I mean. Like, you need different kinds of skill sets. Like, if you're a good communicator, that's a great skill also. Like, if you're able to understand science, but maybe you're not a scientist, but you can communicate it, that's an incredibly important skill. Like, we need all sorts of skills as we can continue to explore space. But yes, of course, I would love to be one of those journalists going up and telling that story of going into space and what is it like.
Right. And if they need someone to just make fun of the entire thing, it would be me.
And you said you don't want to go, so you'd have to mock us and then like get out the
just, I mean, wouldn't you have to wear diapers too?
You do for you probably would.
Yeah, so that'd be easy to make fun of, the diapers.
Alan Shepard, the first American to go into space, and there was a delay to his launch, and he only spent 15 minutes in space with his first space mission. So this is back in 1961, and he really needed to go to the bathroom while they're on the launch pad, and he didn't have a diaper on, and he basically had to go in his spacesuit while he was sat there, and he went into space with his pee in his pants.
Oh, and did it float when he was at zero gravity? Like, did the pee float in the air?
It must have done. He was only, he only had zero gravity for a few minutes. They never talk about it, but maybe it was within his spacesuit. But
yeah, I remember that when I was young. They would say that you have to do everything in your spacesuit. I'm like, oh wow, it's so interesting. So, I mean, who cares? Who cares at that point? I mean, if you're in space, you probably are going to pee yourself. Who knows what happens? I'm sure people had orgasms too, like the astronauts. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. Who knows what happens? Who knows what happens to their body? And how does it affect them? It doesn't. They age? Don't they age when they come back? It used to be that they age like 60 years or something when they come back. So
maybe
hard
not
in your body.
Quite 60 years, but it does because you're away from gravity. Human beings aren't designed to be in space. It weakens their muscles, it weakens their bones. So we can actually study aging of humans by sending astronauts into space and see what happens to their body, but also ways to combat aging as well and to make aging more pleasant. So there's a lot we can learn from space, but there's a lot of risk and a lot of health risks that astronauts take.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. I love this talk. I learned so much about space and space travel, and wow, it's just so exciting. So everyone, please buy Sarah's book, look up. So thank you so much for inspiring. Thank you so much for educating, and thanks so much for your time today.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Have a great day in the sunshine.
Thanks, Sarah.